guys? Vanilla Paints here, and we just finished up the podcast, the Afterwash podcast. I will try to include links in the bottom of this video so you guys can go check out the podcast. It was requested that I do a tutorial on how I paint gemstones, so I do my best to cover it step by step. A little disclaimer, I apologize. You're going to hear my kids running around quite a bit. They were out and about playing around, so I do apologize about that. But it is what it is. Hopefully you can watch this video and apply this technique to anything. It works for gemstones, armor, you name it. Same process. You can take it, repeat it, apply it how you need. With that being said, let's jump right into it. All right, what is up, guys? This is the end of the podcast. We still have Red with us. Want to say hello, Red?
Hey, Red.
So,
hey.
We are going to display how I paint gems. Couple little things I want to cover before we go any farther. Painting on a black miniature, I currently have a filter on my lamp because of the model that I'm currently painting live on stream. It has impacted the color. You will see the model start to come together as the colors go on. It's going to start off really dark. Next, always paint with gloves. As you see, when I move the gloves around next to the model, it starts to come to life. You can actually start seeing it. This is not a standard thing. A lot of people don't. This is just personal preference. I don't like to put oils on the miniature when I start. Let's see here. The color that we're going to be using today. Get a nice shake, bring it into the can. We're going to be using this turquoise blue. This is a very vibrant color. This is Vallejo game color. That you can take this process and use it with any paints that you want. If you use Vallejo, if you use Citadel, M80, any of that stuff, Army Painter, this all applies to that. This is a technique that I've been doing for a while, and it seems that the community has responded very positively to it, so I'm more than happy to share it with you guys. Let's get it shaken up here. And we're going to put a little bit of blue, or turquoise, down on the palette. It's not going to take too much, really. Well, we'll put a fair amount down.
Can we see your palette whilst you're doing it? Is that possible?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't display the palette the whole time while I'm painting, but I'll bring it in.
Yeah.
Little bit
I'm more curious about what consistency you're going to be getting that paint to.
Oh, here, I'll do that in the frame. There you go.
Okay, cool.
So you see the turquoise right there. Now we discussed this in the podcast, but this is kind of cool to note because this kind of helps out. We were talking about how colors like to separate, and you can start seeing what derives it. There's a prime example right here on this edge. You see that really dark blue?
Yeah, man.
That's part of what derives the turquoise color. Pretty cool that actually happened. So our next step is going to be to take, this says glazed medium. It is not. This is just water. We're going to thin it down. I'm going to add just a couple drops. We go for a 2-to-1 ratio. That should do it. 2 drops of water right there. I'm going to grab our mixing brush. Kind of give the paint a little stir. Like that. As you should be able to see, it's very thin. You see it on the palette. It doesn't look like there's any paint there. It just looks like water. You see blue, but it just looks like colored paper. Now, that's because of how thin we have it. I like to paint with really thin paints, especially when we're doing gemstones. Any lumps or clumps in the gems will not make them look real. You don't want that. You want them to look realistic and pure. We're going to clean our brush off. And then for this, I'm not going to be showing you guys how to paint the gold trim and all that. We're going to focus primarily on the gemstone. We're going to be using a Princeton Velvet Touch 5.0 spotter. This is not the actual one we're going to be using. This is just a kind of display to show you what we're using. It's a very excellent brush. This is a 50-50, half synthetic, half natural. There we go. This is the one we're going to be using. So we're going to grab our mini, bring it into frame. We're going to be getting this gemstone right here. We're going to get some turquoise on our brush. And one thing that's important to note is when you're painting, try to have a nice form or a nice foundation. For me, my elbows are locked against my thighs and my wrists are set on the table, just so that I have a really steady hand. So we're going to go in, start pulling this turquoise around this gemstone. real smooth. Really take your time. No need to rush this step at all. We're just getting our base color down. Trying to keep it as smooth as possible.
Mm-hmm. So this is the base coat step, yes?
Yes, it is. We started with black. This is actually important to note. I'm glad you brought that up. We're deriving from a base coat of black because it helps with the perception of depth. It darkens up our base color, makes it look much darker than what it would appear on white. Makes it easier for us to give that illusion across the gemstone as well.
And so at this point, you're just putting down an even base level, yeah?
Correct. All we're doing is deriving our base for the gem. We're going to be washing this down with black. How I do it doesn't mean it's better than any other way. This is just how I do it. We wash it down with black to knock the color down real deep and dark so that when we go in and we start building up our tones and our transitions, we're building from a really dark base. It makes all of the pastel colors really pop. One more little pass here, and we're good. Just keeping it smooth. Most important part, keep the paint smooth. No lumps, no clumps. Perfect.
Now, clearly in this example, you are using a new model that you've just base coated, but this wouldn't necessarily be the first step that you do on a model. Am I correct?
Correct. If you don't, there are some people out there that do not prime miniatures, and that's fine. If you like to paint unprimed, that's perfectly fine. But I would recommend that you do prime your minis. If you don't, the paint doesn't like to stick. You hear Red laughing. It's kind of just common practice. Always prime. So you see we've got a really nice blue there. It's very vibrant. But in order to build a transition from that, we need to give the perception of depth. This is where our black wash comes into play. For this particular one, I'm going to be sticking all the way through this model. We're going to be using only Vallejo Game Color line products. That's it. So for this wash, we're going to be using, we'll just call it what we call it in America. Black wash. rather than try to pronounce what they have. I believe it's Lavado Negro, I think. I don't know.
You're pretty close, yeah. I mean, I don't speak Spanish, and that sounds right, so.
And we don't need very much wash, okay? We just added a couple drops to a hard palette. Here it is. A couple drops. No need to thin it down. We want a really dark wash. I'm going to go in and put that down right over top of this blue. Some people are probably thinking, why would you do that? You just put that bright blue on. Trust me, this is where the depth comes into play. Big secret.
So at this point, are you applying that wash evenly over the model, or are you focusing on a particular area?
Yes, our first pass is strictly covering the entirety of the gemstone in black. This will get 2 passes. I have a fan going, so it'll dry really quick. Normally we don't use a fan on gemstones because we don't want dust or anything like that to get in the paint. But we're going to today just to speed it up. So I'm going to put it in front of the fan. And what the first pass does is starts building the depth. The second pass is where we're going to start getting our darks for the color. Where we're going to start building up our contrast as we come across the gemstone. Almost dry. This part he can edit out.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Now
Okay, so we're back.
Ready for our second pass. This is where the gem's going to start to look almost black. Okay. See how much darker it just got on that pass?
Mm. This is one of my things. One of my favorite things about dealing with washes is you can make things almost completely black and just give a subtle hint to color behind it if you want to. And in some cases, you may want to leave it like that with just a very subtle hint of color. But this is really good.
Yeah, washes are, as we said in the podcast, they're your best friend. You know, the washes can do a lot of things. Same thing with glazes. You guys are going to get 2 tutorials in one because I'm going to have to teach you how to make a glaze, or not teach for some, but show how I do it, I guess we should say. We're going to go ahead and do that. We got an empty slot right here. We're going to grab a little bit of that turquoise. Drop it in there. That. We're going to add...
Very small amount, very small amount.
Yes, we may have to add more depending. We're going to have to kind of play it by ear. We're not mixing a lot here. I'm going to add 3 drops of glaze. Glaze medium. I'm sorry, glaze medium. 3 drops of glaze medium. And then 3 drops of water. And you'll know when you get it wrong because the pigment will start to separate. It won't look right. And remember that basically all we're creating right here is a translucent paint. That's it.
So consistency-wise, that's like, I don't know, milk? Light milk?
Yeah, I would say more like 2% milk.
Yeah. Skimmed milk in the UK, if that helps anyone.
Yes. That's actually perfect. See how when I pull it up the side, it runs back down, but it's not super fast. That's what we're looking for. Perfect. So, take a little bit of that glaze that we just mixed up, and we want the light to be coming in from this side of the gem, right in here. And when we think about a gem hits when we think about a gem in light, the light hits the gem. We have our bright point up here, and it refracts through the gemstone, and those colors start saturating right down here in its counterpart. That's what we're going to be doing. Get our glaze, and we're going to work diagonally across the gemstone. Step is very important because this starts building a subtle transition up for us. It really kind of does the work for us in developing the light shift that occurs in the gemstone.
So in this case, you're concentrating on the lower 3/4, essentially.
Correct. So we're going from this corner to this corner and that corner.
Yep.
And this step is really quick. I'm going to be going back and forth between the fan and the camera. You never want to touch a glaze or a wash until it's completely dry. If you try to touch it too soon, it'll scab, it'll look terrible. Don't want that.
We've all made that mistake, though. We've all made that mistake.
Yes.
Going in too early is a bad idea when it comes to any wash or glaze.
Now, I've displayed some fixes for that on stream a couple times. I've been painting for a while, and I still make that mistake from time to time. I'm sure, Red, you still accidentally do that from time to time, don't you, buddy?
I did it last night, and the end result was I had to repaint the model that I was working on because I'd screwed it up so badly. So it happens. You deal with it and you move on.
Now, I do have a little trick for scabbing. Maybe we'll cover that one day. It's not the most sound or professional thing to do. If you're doing commission work or something, people are going to notice it. But if you're getting a miniature ready for the table and you get a little bit of scabbing, I can show you guys how to fix that on a later tutorial. It's pretty neat. It's a pretty cool little trick I learned. We're going to get that in front of the fan. We'll do one more pass with the glaze after that dries, and then we're going to start developing that tone coming across the model, and you're going to start seeing that gemstone come to life. Fred, you're such a good sport. Sticking around.
I'm curious. I can't paint gems to save my life, so let's get this sorted out, man.
Got a nice build there. We don't actually need that next pass, actually. That's a win for us. After that dried, we're going to get away with 2 passes with that glaze. The importance of that to be noted is generally you would want to hit with 3 passes. Now, again, I'm new to the Vallejo Game Color line. Those of you that come to the live stream know that this is a new line of paint that I've been using. And it appears it's a little bit more pigmented than Citadel. So I'm going to say safely you could get away with 2 passes of a glaze Derive. from Vallejo. If you're going with Games Workshop or Citadel line, make sure you're doing 3. All right. Now we're going to grab our base color for the gem. Going right back to that turquoise. And we're going to start pulling that across that same way.
So this is the pure color now. This is not the glaze. This is the base paint that you started with.
Correct. This is the base turquoise.
Brilliant.
And all we're doing is we're kind of feathering it across in that diagonal shape that we've created. Kind of make it look more natural and not so like straight lined, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make sure that we're cutting all the way down next to the casing for the gem. The casing would be what you would be painting gold or silver, whatever you desire. It's basically what the gemstone sets in. Just like that. Now you should already see that there's a transition that's forming. Right there, I see it plain as day. See up here at the very top, it's very dark, but down here we're getting much brighter.
Yep.
So what we want to do is we want to grab some white. White is going to be the shade that we're going to be adding to develop the brighter turquoise.
That's an important word that you use there. It's a shade.
Yes. I wanted to do that strictly because what we covered in the podcast, no confusion. So let me bring this into light real quick for you guys so you guys can see what I have. Wow, you cannot see anything. Right
I see
here,
a pool, just about, yeah.
there is actually white paint right there, right below my paintbrush. Okay? We're going to grab some of that white. We're going to bring it over here. You're going to see the new color come into play. We're going to grab some of our turquoise, bring it over into here. There you go. You guys see the new color that's forming? No, you still don't. Holy crap.
It's too bright. It's too bright. I see it on... yeah, there we go. I see it on your brush, actually.
Now
there we go.
We don't want it to be too fast. This is a slow transition, okay? Very, very slow.
So you're building up in layers here, essentially. You're trying to get it to... You're going to white or going to a lighter color, but in a very slow transition.
Very, very slow. As we work across the miniature, or across the gem, I should say, you're going to notice one trend that stays true the entire time. And it's that we are going to be reducing the amount of space we're covering with each lighter shade. Now, what I had to move it out of the camera because the light source that I'm using was really drowning out the color.
Of course.
And I wanted to make sure that I have it on point for sure. So I'm adding a little bit more white. We got a little too dark there. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Mix it up. Good. Clean the brush. Always clean the brush after you mix anything like that. Always, always clean the brush. Never let any paint set up next to the base. It can damage the hairs and ruin the brush.
No, trust me, I've ruined enough brushes in my lifetime.
I think we all have. Alright. So now, we're going to start bringing this across. Okay? We're not going as high up this time. Reducing the amount of coverage we're getting here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the other thing too that's important here. It doesn't have to be just absolutely flawless and all that. It's not necessary. It's light we're talking about. Light is not direct. It's not exact, especially when it travels through an object. Okay, so there's what we got so far. I'm going to keep stopping and bringing it up. You're starting to see the color shift here. The real dark, the mediums, the lighter. This next step is really going to start bringing it in to a more realistic look is the word I'm looking for. Again, I'm mixing this on the whim, guys. That's important to note. I'm not using any pods. I'm not changing colors on you guys. Red's actually here watching this live with me. He can vouch. I'm not pulling any...
I can vouch for that. It's just the one color.
Here goes our next color.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's one color and one shade. Sorry.
Yes, yes. So here goes our next step. Work down across the mini. And again, we're reducing the amount of area we're covering with each pass. Perfect. We're going to add a little bit more white. Same thing. Just adding white. Up our color. Where we need to go. Clean the brush from where we just mixed. Dry it off. Don't want any extra water straggling. Go in. Okay. The amount of area we're covering.
Hello.
Perfect. All right, you see that transition starting to soften up?
Yeah, yep.
Same thing, more white. Clean the brush. Now I'm using my shorts. I paint all the time. Most of my clothes are ruined by paint, but for you, make sure you're using a shirt or something. Old shirt, something like that, paper towel, whatever it is that you have. Go in and start adding more. It's going farther across now. It's really started creating a gap between the color transitions.
Do you have a general rule of thumb for how many layers you build up on a particular gem, or is it case by case?
There's really no standard rule, and I don't really want to say it's necessarily case by case. It's more when you look at something that you've painted and you're trying to bring it into a realistic effect, you're really eyeballing the amount of white that's being produced across the refraction.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of just play it by eye instead of playing it by ear. Really playing it by eye. Focusing.
It's a judgment call at the end of the day.
Yeah, more or less, yes. Because what I find appealing, you may not. You may not want that much light traveling through a gem, and that again, that's where the judgment comes into play.
Yeah.
So we've got a little bit brighter turquoise here. Same thing. Use how much of the gem we're covering. Make sure you're rotating the model too. I'm not just doing that because it makes it easier to paint certain areas. Doing that way I can see all of the high points that I've developed. Go. Add a little bit more. I don't like the way the middle of the gem's looking, so it's easy fix. What we're going to do is pull in a little bit higher, just like that. That quick. Same thing, more white. At this point, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing white, and now I'm bringing the turquoise to the white. Easier for me to change the tone by building from white than it is from building from turquoise, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And basically all we're doing is building up these color shifts all the way across till we achieve almost what I would say is a bright white.
What I really like about this method is it doesn't just necessarily work for gemstones. I mean, I know what you're doing with the brush and the way you're angling everything probably does, but the transitions between tones, if you want to build up layers of depth in anything that you're trying to paint, you can follow the same sort of principle. I mean, certainly with the paint colors, not necessarily with the paint brush techniques, because you're obviously focusing less and less on certain areas. But that's the same with anything, really. At the end of the day, if light's hitting a model at a particular angle, you can paint that way.
Absolutely. It's a really nice subtle touch. I know to some it seems like a lot to be putting all that into such a little bitty gemstone, but if you apply this to anything, like you were just saying, you can really start developing really beautiful transitions across any miniature that you're working on. Start making things pop a little bit more. And again,
you've just got to have the patience to do it.
Absolutely, that's the hardest part. It's the patience.
But if you don't have patience, you're not going to be a painter at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Go. Now you see how that gem's starting to it's taking on like a glow. Now what we're going to do is our final touch. We're going to add a bunch of white, This is going to be a very pale blue. Very, very pale. Clean the brush off, and this is where the gem is going to come to life. You're going to see it instantly when this color touches. Rotate this around, like so. There we go. Small, subtle touch here. Enough to really make this thing pop. Feather it across. Bring it out nice and evenly.
And this is the thing, you can be doing this at home yourself, and you may not be happy with the results, but it's that final touch, that last bit where you are adding white in, or a lot of white in, with still some of your base color, that is going to make it come together and feel like you've done a good job. And until that point, you're just not going to know necessarily. You can be disappointed, and then when that final touch goes in, you'll be amazed. Because, yeah, look at that.
Now this is a little bit more of a what I would call a aggressive transition. We've jumped really quickly. Okay, so what you can do if you want to knock it down, just doing this for tutorial purposes. Let's say that's a little too bright for you. So what we do is we go to our glaze that we've made. Little touch. And pull the glaze all the way across everything that we've just built. Boom. Absolutely fucking beautiful. I'll bring it all the way up. I'm not ashamed. I'm gonna toot my own horn here. You tell me that don't look like a real gem?
Yeah, that's good, man. Bang on. Look at that. Wow. Yeah.
All thin layers, all just smooth, subtle transitions between our original color and adding the shade of white to develop all of our tones. It's that easy. For everybody who's asked how I've done it, there you go. That's it. I encourage everybody to try this, not just on gemstones. Try it on armor. Try it on eyes. Anything. It's absolutely beautiful. You can do a lot of stuff with it. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully you can apply this to anything that you're painting at home. I want to thank everybody who stuck around and watched the tutorial. Red, do you have any questions before we go, buddy?
I don't have any questions. I have one thing that I'd like to say. That last highlight that you did on the top left there, the peak highlight, that's an edge highlight, my friend. You don't do edge highlights.
I will do it on gemstones, but that is a very good call that he just put out there. I do not edge highlight, but we do that here simply because we want to make sure that we are providing the absolute highest point of light to be like it's so bright that it's passing through the gem and it's making it glow. I'll show you guys. I can cover look at this. I've got my hand completely over the light. There's no light, and it looks like it's glowing.
You can still see it. Yeah, that's amazing.
So, and look at the.
Yeah.
I could do that all day, man, all day. White gems
fantastic
are
job,
fucking awesome.
Fantastic job.
I appreciate it very much, and again, hopefully everybody enjoyed this little tutorial. Hopefully you guys had fun. I want to thank Reds Web for sticking around, hanging out, asking the questions. It's not a problem, man, and I hope to catch everybody in the next tutorial. Alright guys, so there you have it. That is how I paint my gemstones. Hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, please thumbs up the video. If you want more content like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It's a great way to keep this content coming to you guys. And again, if you've never checked out my live stream, please take the time, come over there, hang out. I look forward to seeing everybody. You can find me live at twitch.tv/vanilla_paints. I hope to see everybody there, and I will catch everybody in the next video.